Nobody was supposed to find what's underneath Petra. In fact, for 2,000 years, nobody did. Then a drone carrying radar 100 times more powerful than anything previously used flew over the Treasury, the most famous monument in Jordan, and what it detected 35 meters below the surface made 3 members of the research team request their names be removed from the report. Not because the data was wrong, because they couldn't explain it. Beneath the carved stone sat geometrically perfect voids, sealed chambers, and structural patterns that no known civilization should have been capable of producing. And that discovery is only the last piece of a puzzle that starts with a question nobody in mainstream archaeology wants to answer. How did a society with bronze chisels build something that modern engineers say is impossible? Petra, a city carved from living rock in the Jordanian desert, 40-meter facades, underground waterways, fountains in a place that gets less than 4 inches of rain a year. No blueprints, no construction records, no tools ever recovered, and a level of precision that matches laser-guided machinery. What you're about to hear connects 7 mysteries that have baffled researchers for decades, and by the end, you'll understand why that radar scan changed everything. Hit subscribe now, because this story is far from over. In 2023, engineers ran photogrammetric scans across the Treasury's facade, 25 meters wide, 39 meters tall, taller than a 10-story building. They expected to confirm that the Nabataeans, Petra's credited builders, used simple top-down carving. Instead, the scans revealed symmetry accurate to within 20 millimeters across the entire surface. That's the tolerance of a structure designed with computer-aided modeling. 2,000 years ago, carvers standing on narrow ledges allegedly achieved it with hand tools. Oxford's Dr. Judith Mackenzie noted the facade encodes the golden ratio and 3-to-2 proportional relationships, all planned before the first chisel strike, because carving downward into a cliff allows zero correction. But here's what makes it truly impossible. The Treasury sits at the end of a canyon so narrow you can never stand far enough away to see the whole structure. The builders couldn't even look at what they were making. When archaeologists cataloged individual chisel marks, every strike was nearly identical, same depth, same angle, same force, as though made by a machine, not a human arm. Fatigue alone should make that impossible after an hour of overhead work. Your wrist shifts, your shoulder drops, your rhythm drifts. Petra shows none of that. Italian master carvers who inspected the facade said removing 8,500 cubic meters of stone with that uniformity cannot be done without modern power tools. And that's just what's visible on the surface. What's happening inside the rock is even stranger, and it involves sound behaving in ways physics can't fully explain. Step into certain chambers behind the Treasury and speak. Your voice won't echo, it won't bounce. It hangs, amplified, vibrating, then vanishes with unnatural clarity. Acoustic engineers who studied the Ad Dir Monastery in 2019 found these spaces produce resonance profiles matching purpose-built concert halls. Except concert halls are constructed by adding materials. Petra's chambers were created by subtraction, carving rock away. That doesn't happen by accident. It requires precise control over chamber volume, wall angle, surface texture, and material density, all calculated before carving begins. Researchers from MIT and the University of Amman, who measured sonic frequencies inside the monuments in 2021, concluded that the builders deliberately tuned the stone to manipulate how sound travels through rock. In the urn tomb, a whisper at the rear wall is heard amplified and clear at the front portico dozens of meters away, a feature invisible from outside. No records explain the method. No evidence of acoustic testing tools has been found in the region. But the sound engineering is real, measurable, and repeatable. Someone designed these chambers to do exactly what they do, and it connects directly to what was found underground. But we're not there yet. First, the water system that shouldn't exist. Before you reach the Treasury, thin channels line the canyon walls. They look natural. They're not. They belong to one of the most advanced hydraulic networks in the ancient world. Petra gets fewer than 4 inches of rain annually, yet at its peak, it supported tens of thousands of people and exported surplus water to surrounding settlements. In 2015, King's College London hydrologists used ground-penetrating radar and infrared satellite scans to map the system. They found hidden cisterns, ceramic pipelines, pressure-control chambers, and flow regulators, all precise enough to maintain constant delivery across miles of uneven terrain. The channels were sealed with waterproof plaster and fitted with sediment traps. Technology not expected in this region for another 1,000 years. One aqueduct carved into vertical cliffs drops just 30 meters over 7 kilometers, a gradient requiring surveying tools that supposedly didn't exist. Stranger still, some tunnels cut through solid bedrock at angles that suggest the builders already knew the subsurface geology. No test bores, no abandoned tunnels. Every cut connects, as if they had a map of what lay beneath before they started digging. And like everything else at Petra, no explanation was left behind. But this city has another secret, one that defies the very forces of nature that should have reduced it to rubble long ago. The Dead Sea Transform Fault sits less than 60 kilometers away. At least 5 major earthquakes hit this region between the 1st and 8th centuries. Brittle sandstone facades should have crumbled. Yet the Treasury stands. The monastery stands. Dozens of royal tombs stand, while Roman-era additions nearby collapsed. A 2014 study by Jordan's Department of Antiquities and ETH Zurich found that stress cracks at Petra stop abruptly at specific carved transitions, acting as shock absorbers that dissipate seismic energy instead of transmitting it. Some columns aren't fully attached to the cliff. Corners hover millimeters from the rear wall. These aren't mistakes, they're deliberate separations allowing micro-movement during earthquakes. Modern buildings use expansion joints for the same effect. Petra has them carved directly into rock. Radar scans then revealed something even more unexpected: hollow chambers behind several major facades. These voids reduce mass and lower seismic load, the same principle behind hollow core construction in modern skyscrapers. They serve no decorative or burial purpose. Their only function is structural survival. No ancient text describes the technique. And here's the pattern that keeps researchers up at night. Later, Nabataean and Roman structures at Petra lack these features. They failed. The most advanced engineering belongs to the oldest monuments. Technology didn't advance here, it regressed. Which raises a question most people never think to ask about Petra. Where did all the rock actually go? The Treasury required removing 8,500 cubic meters of sandstone, enough to fill 3 Olympic pools. At quarry sites worldwide, from Aswan to Greece, waste stone still sits where ancient workers left it. At Petra, the debris is gone. In 2020, geologist Dr. Lorenzo Zambelli of the University of Bologna used sediment analysis and aerial LiDAR to search for the missing material. His team found mounds east of the city, but none matched the Treasury's distinctive grain or color. The stone wasn't reused in Petra's other structures. This was a rock-cut city, not a masonry one. French archaeologist Alain Chamoux suggested the rubble was crushed into hydraulic cement, but no large-scale traces exist. Later monuments have visible rubble piles and abandoned cuts, but the oldest, most refined structures are spotlessly clean. The work was done, the rock removed, and the waste vanished. That mystery gets worse when you realize the builders didn't just leave no debris behind, they left no words either. The Nabataeans carved over 4,000 inscriptions across Petra, trade records, prayers, dedications, everyday notes. Not a single one mentions the Treasury, not its construction, its patron, its purpose. Nothing. Epigrapher Dr. Lila Neme of France's National Center for Scientific Research spent a decade cataloging these texts. The most elaborate royal inscriptions appear on smaller, cruder tombs, not on the grand facades. The treasury, the monastery, and the urn tomb are bare. Two theories exist. Either the Nabataeans deliberately left them unmarked for religious reasons, or these structures predate the Nabataeans entirely and were inherited, not built. Nabataean script overwhelmingly appears on later monuments showing declining craftsmanship. The treasury's design includes Hellenistic and Assyrian motifs foreign to Nabataean tradition. And in 2019, ultraviolet light revealed faint markings beneath the polished surface, proto-Sinaitic characters from a writing system over 1,000 years older than the Nabataeans. Someone was here first. And they may have left behind something else, something you can measure with a compass. In 2022, geophysicists from the University of Jordan and Swiss researchers ran a magnetic survey of Petra's central monuments. Near the treasury, the monastery, and the royal tombs, compasses drifted up to 6 degrees before snapping back to normal meters away. Core samples showed no unusual iron oxide. The rock was chemically identical to surrounding stone with zero interference. The anomalies clustered around architectural features, columns, porticos, carved recesses, not random cliff sections. This ruled out geology and pointed to human influence. Geophysicist Dr. Mina Abdulrazi proposed the distortions are residual signatures from exposure to extreme heat or electromagnetic energy in the distant past, permanently altering the rock's magnetic properties. Drone-mounted magnetometers have since detected matching anomalies in unexcavated zones beneath the surface. Whatever's causing the distortion runs deeper than what's visible. Magnetic fields you can measure. Sound you can record. Seismic resilience you can test. But there's one thing conspicuously absent from all of this evidence: the tools that made it. Over 85 international excavation missions spanning more than a century. Temples uncovered. Tombs opened. Hydraulic systems mapped. Tools recovered? Almost none. No chisel stockpiles, no hammer fragments, no scaffolding remnants. The few implements found are ceremonial or too crude to match the precise cuts on the facades. A 2021 survey by the German Archaeological Institute confirmed the absence is genuinely anomalous. A project this massive should have left hundreds of broken tools buried at the base of the cliffs. Egypt's Aswan quarries are littered with them. Greek construction sites preserve them routinely. At Petra, the instruments were either removed, degraded completely, or were never tools as we understand them. 7 mysteries. No answers. Until the drone went up. 7 mysteries. 1 answer. The drone's 100 times deep penetration radar detected geometrically precise voids beneath the treasury. Not random cavities, but interconnected chambers in deliberate patterns aligned perfectly with the surface architecture above. The acoustic spaces, the seismic separation gaps, the magnetic anomaly zones, all connected, all part of a single 3-dimensional system extending from the carved facade deep into the bedrock of the mountain itself. The impossible precision, the tuned acoustics, the earthquake engineering, the vanished stone, the silent inscriptions, the magnetic distortions, the missing tools. These were never separate puzzles. They were always pointing to what lies beneath. The treasury may not be a treasury at all. It may be a seal over something buried for thousands of years. And for the first time in history, we know it's there. The question isn't how they built Petra. It's what they were building it for, and what's still waiting in the dark below. If this shook you the way it shook the team that ran those scans, hit like and subscribe. When they finally open that sealed chamber 35 meters under the Treasury, you'll want to hear about it before anyone else. Petra's secrets aren't buried. They're carved in plain sight, waiting for someone to look deep enough to see what's really there.